Shalom, children. In our story last time, Yeshua had been betrayed by Yehudas with a kiss. He had been bound and taken to the house of the high priest Caiaphas. Several people had given a false testimony against him, and it was decided by the elders that Yeshua deserved to be put to death. Our story continues today at the house of Caiaphas. He began to question Yeshua about who his disciples were and wanted to hear him explain what he was teaching the people. Yeshua told him, "I have said nothing in secret. I spoke openly to the world. I always taught in the synagogues and in the temple. These men who are stood here, they heard me teach. You can ask them what I taught." An officer who was standing nearby struck Yeshua in the face. "Don't answer the high priest like that," he yelled. But Yeshua said to him, "If I have spoken evil, tell us. But if I speak truth, why do you strike me?" The officers then took Yeshua and behaved very wickedly. Wanting to mock him for being a prophet, they put a blindfold onto his eyes and asked him to prophesy which one of them had hit him. This was a very cruel and mean thing to do, but sadly, we are going to hear about more wicked behavior from the people. In the morning, the elders, sages, and the ruling Kohanim gathered together in the council room when Yeshua was led in. The council demanded answers from him. They asked him, "Tell us, are you the Messiah? Are you the Son of Elohim?" He answered them, "You said it." Then they all determined he was to be sentenced to death. In those days, the Roman government ruled the land, and any death sentence had to be passed and ordered by them. So Yeshua was led away to the hall of the Roman governor, named Pontius Pilate. He asked the council who had brought him in, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They told him, "Yeshua is an evildoer." Now, being an evildoer was a religious issue and did not break any Roman law. Pilate laughed at the men and told them to go and judge Yeshua according to their own religious laws. They explained that they had already judged him and found he was deserving of death, but they needed Roman authorization. The elders and the ruling Kohanim realized they had to present a charge which would get Pilate's attention. So they told him, "Yeshua declared himself the king." Now this was a very serious offense because it challenged the authority of the Roman king, that is, Caesar. In order to find Yeshua guilty of that charge, Pilate needed to hear Yeshua say from his own mouth, "I am the king." So he asked him directly, "Are you the king of the Yehudim?" Yeshua simply answered, "You are the one saying it." Not finding him guilty, Pilate returned to the Pharisees and the gathered council and made the announcement, "I find no fault in this man." But the ruling elders insisted, "This Galilean incites the people with his teaching throughout the entire nation." When Pilate heard that Yeshua was from the area of the Galilee, he thought to hand him over to Herod, who ruled over that area. Now it just so happened Herod was visiting Jerusalem at that time, so the prisoner Yeshua was taken to him. Herod had heard all about Yeshua and was very pleased to have the chance to meet with him. He was hoping to see a miracle with his own eyes. He began to ask him lots of questions, but Yeshua remained silent. At that, Herod mocked him by placing a magnificent royal robe onto Yeshua and sent him back to Pontius Pilate. Having received Yeshua back into his hands, Pilate called for the ruling Kohanim and the elders to tell them both he and Herod had questioned Yeshua thoroughly, but they could find no fault, certainly nothing worthy of death. The elders insisted Yeshua was to be put to death. Pilate turned to his prisoner and asked him why he did not answer their accusations, but again Yeshua remained silent. A crowd had started to gather, and Pilate worried the situation was going to get out of control. He had to find a solution and help calm the crowd. Now, each year at the time of the feast, Pilate had a tradition of releasing one of the prisoners whom the people decided. So he called for a man named Bar-Abbas to be brought out from the prison. Bar-Abbas was very well known to the people. He had robbed, caused violence in the city, and even killed several men. Pilate asked the crowd, "Which of these two men do you want me to release? Bar-Abbas, the murderer, or Yeshua, who is called Messiah?" The ruling Kohanim were prepared. They had gone through the crowd and persuaded the people to call for the death of Yeshua. Pilate was astonished when he heard the cry for Bar-Abbas to be released. He asked the crowd, "So what shall I do with the one you call the King of the Yehudim?" The people yelled, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" "Why?" asked Pilate. "What evil has he done?" But the crowd shouted even louder, "Crucify him!" Now you may be wondering, what does crucify mean? Crucifixion was one of the ways the Roman government killed its slaves, runaways, murderers, and thieves. It was a very brutal and painful way for someone to die. The person was nailed onto a wooden stake or a cross, which was then lifted upright. The person hung there in the view of everyone who walked by, until they died. The Roman government hoped that when its citizens saw the criminals suffering such a painful death, they would be encouraged to follow the rules and not break their laws. Pilate announced to the crowd, "This man has done nothing wrong. It is your decision to kill him." He then washed his hands before the multitude, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this just person." He then delivered Yeshua over to the guards, who took him away and beat him very badly with whips. Many men had died from such a beating because it was a very fierce form of punishment. But the guards had not finished with him yet. Once again, Yeshua was mocked. A new royal robe was brought and put onto him. Then a special crown was made, but not one from gold. Oh no, this crown was made from twisted thorns. Children, have you ever pricked your finger, let's say on a rose thorn? It is very painful. Well, this thorny crown was pushed down hard onto Yeshua's head. The men acted extremely rude and disrespectful toward Yeshua. They bowed before him and mockingly said, "Hail the King of the Yehudim!" Afterwards, when the soldiers had finished their torture of the prisoner, Pilate brought the beaten, and unrecognizable Yeshua out for the crowd to see, and announced, "Behold, your King." It can make us feel very sad to listen to the awful things they did to Yeshua that day. Elohim is in control, and nothing happens without him allowing it. Yeshua could have called upon the Father to send a heavenly army to fight the Romans and rescue him from the terrible beatings. But Elohim has a plan of restoration. The covenant had been broken by the children of Israel, and Yeshua was going to renew that covenant by choosing to offer himself in our place as the guilt offering. The prophet Isaiah said of this day, "It was the will of Adonai to crush him. He has put him to grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring, he shall prolong his days." In all of that darkness, we can certainly see a great light of hope. The ruling Kohanim will get the crucifixion of Yeshua that they wanted, but Yeshua will have victory over death. Well, children, that is the end of our story for today. So we will see you next time for another exciting journey in the life of Yeshua. Shalom.